What is going on, everyone? This is your host, Martin.
And Jose.
And we are back to you with our second episode of A Drink with the Past. And this one is going to be a doozy, guys. This one is basically going to be a special Thanksgiving episode. We are basically going to be explaining about the history of Thanksgiving and how Thanksgiving eventually became a federal holiday here in the United States, and basically what controversies lie behind celebrating the holiday itself.
And before we get started, we'd like to give a shout out to two angels, Petite Sarah. This vintage wine is made here from California. Has a little bit of spice, has a little bit of aromas of red currant, plum, and some blackberry. So it's very rich. So let's go ahead and settle in.
I'll drink that. We're gonna pour it in right now. Gonna grab my cup, so I will take my cup and Jose will grab his. So join us as we begin this special podcast. So get back, relax as you take a drink with the past.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh wow, that's got some kick to it. I really smell some aroma in this. That was good. So Thanksgiving. So let's start off with how we basically remembered the holiday and how we grew up. So I'll just start off with me. So for me, Thanksgiving was really like one of the best times, I would say, for my family, because that was really one of the many days we gathered together as one, whether it be in one uncle's house one year and then like the other year it would be at an aunt's house, etc. But we just remember just being together as a family.
So you were never in just one place every year. It was always just like you bounced from one place to another.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. But then there's like there's some maybe like 3 years, 4 years in a row where it'll just be in one house and then it can just switch back and forth. But I mean, What about you?
I mean, I moved around a lot, so in my case, we used to have it at our house, and then sometimes we would, do the same thing. Like we'll celebrate at a friend's house, but for the most part, they'll come to us. And then on the off chance that we're not in the mood to cook anything, we'll just make something, leave early, and then we'll just spend the whole rest of the day at someone else's place for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's how it really was in some cases when we went to visit my uncle over in the San Bernardino area, mainly like in the Colton area. Sometimes if some people ended up staying late, then people would just spend the night at his house. But lately, like for the past couple years now, we've just been doing it over here at my house and at my grandma's house, which is like right next door to me. So basically, yeah, it's gotten to where the point where it's just a small gathering, because I mean, with me and my cousins, for example, like we're all grown up, they have families of their own, and basically we're not able to meet together as one as we used to be, because I mean, the reason why we all met together was because we were young, me and my cousins, we were all young, so
At that point, you didn't have a choice because you couldn't really drive yourself anywhere else if you wanted to spend Thanksgiving elsewhere. That's the same thing with us. Because we like, as much as like if we wanted to spend Thanksgiving somewhere else, we either walk, but sometimes we wouldn't even want to do that because it was either too cold to go outside or we're just too lazy at that point.
Exactly, you don't have a choice. Like we didn't have a choice. It's like you're coming to this thing whether you like it or not. It's like okay. So anyways, so Thanksgiving obviously is a day to be thankful for whatever we have, right? So whether it's the company of the people we love that's around us, whether it's based off our bounty, right? The food. What are you thankful about?
Currently, I am thankful for being able to spend time with my family. More specifically, my brother's side of the family, since they are coming over later to celebrate. Also for my job that I work at, that's part of the reason my coworkers did give me like a recommendation for this kind of wines collection that we have today. So kudos to them. Also, I'm just thankful, just to be able to have friends around to, celebrate these days, whether it's just by text or just by FaceTime.
Nice, nice, exactly. So for me, I am also like you, I'm basically thankful for my family, all of them, from my parents, my sister, brother-in-law, and my grandma, and my aunts and uncles, and my cousins. I'm thankful for all them. Let's see, I'm also thankful for my job, even like, I working as a resident substitute teacher at at our old high school that we went to, right? I'm thankful for that job. I'm thankful for my coworkers, everyone that has been with me on my journey through the education system, right? So for my coworkers, you are basically one of the main group of people I am thankful for. So that's Julie,
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, Patrick, Jerry, Jeff, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm thankful for them, but I'm also thankful for my friends, especially the ones that I have made throughout my grade school years and
Mm-hmm.
throughout my college years too. So I'm very thankful for all of them too. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, yeah. All right, so if we want to get this party started already, this Thanksgiving party started, we can go right into our first segment of this, which is basically explaining the history of the first Thanksgiving on in Plymouth by the Pilgrims. And basically, it's going to be about like what we learned in school, basically, if we remember what we learned in school
Middle
about it.
school, the only probably the only significant thing that I remember was it had something to do with England at the time, them going on the Mayflower and signing that Mayflower compact or contract, one of the two things, one of those two words.
Compact.
And then coming to the quote unquote New World at the time. And I didn't know that at that place, they ended up, I don't know if it was really called Plymouth at the time or they just decided to name it once they got here to the New World and just decided, okay, we're going to call this Plymouth Rock.
So basically, yeah. So there's the same thing in when I was in grade school too, like mainly in elementary and in middle school too. Like basically, we were learned about how in 1620 the Pilgrims, which were basically a group of separatists
Mm-hmm.
in England, right? Because at that point, England was had the Church of England, right? They broke away from the Roman Catholic Church and they became their own church thanks to Henry the Eighth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. You guys can decide for yourself on the comments section about Henry the Eighth. But anyways, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, who were known as the Puritans, they were basically a group of separatists Christians who wanted to break away from the Church of England, and apparently, they were getting persecuted because of their faith about their version of Protestantism, and basically they got on a ship. They asked King James the First of England for
Mm-hmm.
a charter,
Right.
that they wanted a charter to go to the New World, so that way they could basically have freedom of religion right there to practice their religion freely. So
Okay.
basically they went on the Mayflower, and then they sailed and a storm basically blew them off course from their regular destination, which was supposed to be Virginia. So a
Oh,
storm. So we learned. So in schools, even today, they learned that a storm pushed the Puritans off course
so
from
they were set
Virginia.
into what area before they were set off course?
Virginia,
So they're headed to Virginia, then the storm set them off. That's how
basically.
they got to Plymouth at that point. Okay.
To present day Massachusetts, yeah.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, they landed on Plymouth. They named it Plymouth after, surprisingly, Plymouth, England, because there is a
Mm.
Plymouth in England.
Yeah.
So they named it after the
Convenient.
Plymouth. Yes,
Still
convenient.
want to hold to the New England roots, but don't want to have anything associated with the people in it. Just the name itself.
Basically, I mean that's how it's been in some cities of the East Coast anyway. So basically, we learned that they landed in the fall of 1620, and then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, like they weren't prepared, like they weren't prepared for the
Mm-hmm.
winter. So
Mm-hmm.
they weren't prepared for the winter. So basically, like yeah. Like, yeah, they weren't prepared for the winter, and a lot of people died. They starved to death. Like, OMG, oh, the horror, the humanity, you know. So,
Well,
basic.
assuming a lot of people ended up dying during that storm anyway, so like
Well,
people
not the
that
storm.
were,
I don't think there were anyone that died in the storm. Probably on the journey, but not during the storm. But I mean, but winter was really the time where people, where those who were like already feeling sick, they were already kind of sick, like they ended up dying during the winter, and all of a sudden, spring comes. They meet with
the Wampanoag.
The Wampanoag tribe, right? And a good savior by the name of Squanto comes to the pilgrims, and he teaches them how to fish. He teaches them how to fertilize the soil and to farm and to grow corn, which was known as maize to the indigenous people. And then all of a sudden, everything was good, right? The crops were
Oh, don't worry. We'll get to how
grown
they
and things
think.
like that.
We'll get to how they thank them. How they thank Squanto later.
Yes, exactly. We'll get more to that, but we'll just explain to you guys about how we were taught in our beautiful education system about the history about Thanksgiving. So basically, after they gathered their fruits, their bounty, the pilgrims ended up inviting the pilgrims. Yes, they ended up inviting. Well, the pilgrims ended up inviting the natives to.
Was it, or was it the other way, where he just brought his people to the feast, and he was like, "Yo, let me bring these people with us, and we can all sit together."
So I guess supposedly it was like that. Like I think that's like there were people like that. The Wampanoag that went, and all of a sudden the Puritans were like, oh, you have come to our feast. Come join us as we give thanks for this bountiful gifts we have received from the Lord.
Yeah, because at that time it was just for a good harvest. They didn't really. I forgot. They didn't even use the word Thanksgiving at the time. I think it was like just a good harvest day.
Basically. So yeah, so basically, of course, that is the controversy about what we learned in school, etc. And then, you know, so basically the first Thanksgiving was in 1621. So basically, the Pilgrims left in 1620. They had to deal with that harsh winter. And then by the following fall of that year, 1621, that was when the first Thanksgiving happened. And it was all thanks to a man by the name of Governor William Bradford, who would be elected as the governor. And basically, because Plymouth, Massachusetts was basically the first place in
The New World.
basically in the New World, in the British New World, where free elections took place, where people were allowed to vote for their leaders, unlike back in England, where
Wait, how was it in England? Is it this?
well, a king. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah,
there was
for
no
sure.
like there was no king, nothing. Right? They were allowed to elect their own leaders.
Right, no monarchs.
Yeah,
at
no,
that time.
like
Okay, got it.
no monarchy involvement in this. So basically, like, yeah, so yeah, and basically, like historians have suggested that the dishes that they were using actually came from Native American methods. So like the spices and how natives prepared.
I would say
their
that
food.
just because like you're on their territory, you don't have all the things that you would have back in New England's, minus maybe some of like your perishables out there, but like the spices and stuff, I would assume you would ask for their assistance at that point, like to add that to your food.
Basically, so basically, how did Thanksgiving come about? How was it celebrated? Like the decades or like the centuries after that event. So basically, it said that during the American Revolution, the Continental Congress designated one or more days of Thanksgiving a year, and in 1789, George Washington, the first president of the United States, issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation by the national government of the United States. So this is basically literally after the United States gained their independence. George Washington did a Thanksgiving proclamation, and then he called upon Americans to express their gratitude for the happy conclusion to the wars, for the country's war of independence and the successful ratification of the U.S. Constitution, basically. So it was at first with him it was like, oh, let's give thanks that we are now independent from England,
Yeah.
and then basically years later we're jumping into years later, almost 7 years ago, as our good friend.
Nice little reference to Abraham Lincoln.
So yeah, so the reason why he did that is because well, first off, in 1827, a writer by the name of Sarah Josepha Hale, right, she launched a campaign to establish Thanksgiving as a national holiday. Like, she wanted Thanksgiving to become a national holiday for this country, right? And then years later, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln, he heeded her request in 1863, right, at the height of the Civil War. So basically, in a proclamation, he
Also,
told,
that was during the Civil War that he decided to be like, okay, yeah, we need to make this a federal holiday.
basically, yeah, because it was so because obviously the Civil War was a war of divisiveness, right? It divided the country in two, and basically he did a proclamation entreating all Americans to ask God to commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife, and to heal the wounds of the nation. So basically, this was a day where he basically said, you know what, it is time for us as Americans to ask God to basically comfort everyone, to basically be a comfort to the widows, the orphans, right, to those who lost their loved ones in the war, etc. And so basically, he would schedule Thanksgiving to be the final Thursday in November, and it would be celebrated on that day every year until 1939, when Franklin Roosevelt moved the holiday up a week in an attempt to spur retail sales during the Great Depression. So Roosevelt's plan, known derisively as Franksgiving, was met with passionate opposition, and in 1941, the president reluctantly signed a bill to making Thanksgiving the fourth Thursday in November.
So Roosevelt wanted to, he wanted it to be a week before the last Thursday of that's crazy.
And it's like I said, it's like a retail thing because the Great Depression was happening. So it's
Oh,
like
the Great Depression.
and
Oh,
like
womp womp.
like a spur retail sale. So basically, like early Black Friday.
Yeah, womp womp. He wants to make sure we don't, lose out on people making money out of this.
I mean, it's kind of become that now. We'll talk about that later on.
I mean, that's the reason why Black Friday is now a thing now.
Exactly. It's like it's oh my gosh, yeah. So President Abraham Lincoln, he was the one that officiated Thanksgiving to be a federal holiday, and it was to be on the last Thursday of every November. So basically that concludes our other segment of that. So now this is where we get to the juicy part.
So
Do you have
you
anything
said
to say?
so you said first. I thought you were just gonna say the alleged first Thanksgiving because you also mentioned about, the one the Spaniards made in Florida as the official first Thanksgiving. That
there you
wasn't
go.
kind of decaded as the first one.
Thank you for bringing up that point right there, Jose. I was actually going to get to that. So there has actually been a lot of controversies in today, right, by historians of when the actual first Thanksgiving took place in America, and that would be St. Augustine, Florida. So was it really in St. Augustine, Florida, or in Plymouth, Massachusetts? So here's
What year was that one when they started Thanksgiving in Florida?
So basically, this happened in 1565. So this was in 1565 when Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez de Avila his crew landed in what would become current day St. Augustine, Florida, right? Because this was at the height of the Spaniards trying to make their place known in this hemisphere, in the Americas, right? So but of course you have like legends and things like that, right, about like treasure, like finding treasure, and of course the lost fountain of youth, thanks to
The Lost Fountain of Youth.
like Ponce de Leon, right? You know that story. So basically, like Pedro Menendez de Avila, after they landed on the beach of what would be St. Augustine, Florida, basically he would invite the local Timucua tribe to a dinner right there. So they did a mass, as they always do in a Catholic country, when a Catholic nation like Spain, after they find land or they establish a land, they would do a mass. The church would do a mass right there, and so they held the Spaniards held a mass right there, and and eventually they invited the local tribe that was right there over to have a dinner, and basically that was whatever they had left on their ship. It was whatever they had left on their ship. They shared it with the tribe.
I wonder what that was. I wonder if it was just like porridge, or I don't know what Spaniards would have thought when they brought stuff over from Spain to Florida.
So basically, I would assume some things from the New World, right? Because they've been there since 1490. They've been here since 1492, so like they would have gotten.
It's interesting to see how American history doesn't even want to like mention that there was other people that came and explored this place before New England decided to and jump ship and come here. So
basically, yeah. So so that was where people, and now since Florida is a state, now that Florida is a state, it's like now it's where we're saying like, well, should we really still consider what happened on Plymouth, Massachusetts, to be considered the first Thanksgiving in America, or should it really have been the Spaniards to have done the first Thanksgiving? Now that since Florida is now a state.
Yeah, I would always refer to like who came here first. So at that point, if the Spaniards were the ones that came here first, then I feel like it should be fairly obvious. It shouldn't be that way. But
opinion,
I mean,
like in your opinion, basically.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Like who got here first is like your classic thing you do on the playground. Like, oh, I was here first. I get this half of the territory.
On the playground. Good one. Yeah. Okay, so now that I finished explaining about that, so really that is based off of you guys, like, so whatever you guys think, right, just, it's whatever you guys think. So if you think the Spaniards should be the ones to have celebrated the first Thanksgiving in America, or you think the Puritans celebrated the first Thanksgiving in Massachusetts should be considered as the actual first Thanksgiving in America. So that's something to ponder about. So the next thing that we're going to get to now is the controversies about what really motivated the Puritans to go to Massachusetts, and basically the sad past of Squanto, basically. So
traveling back to when Squanto first introduced himself to the Puritans and decided to teach them how to fish and how to like forage for stuff in the New World. Was it after that first Thanksgiving that they celebrated that they decided to I would say sell him at that point, or was that during that time when he was showing them the ropes about the New World and like how to fish and stuff?
So really, what was Squanto like? Hold on, repeat that first part again.
So when because allegedly what was written was that but Squanto was sold into slavery. So during that time when Squanto introduced himself to the Puritans in Massachusetts, and he was showing them the ropes of how to fish, how to forage for like the food out there, and how to get a good harvest being here in their territory.
Yeah.
Did him getting sold into slavery happen after the first Thanksgiving, or during that time, like when they all had the first dinner?
No. This was way before. This was way before he met William Bradford in the Puritans. So basically, it happened 6 years before the Mayflower arrived.
Oh.
Right. So basically, a slave trader, right? Some random slave trader who decided to go over there and hunt for slaves, right? He basically captured Squanto, who was known as Tisquantum, and a group of Native Americans, most likely people from his tribe, right? But
the Wampanoag tribe, okay.
Well, not the Wampanoag tribe.
Is it not?
I don't think he was part of the Wampanoag tribe. So his village was known as Patuxent.
Oh, okay. The Pawtucket?
No, not really, but he wasn't part of the Wampanoags, though. That's the thing. He wasn't part of them, because eventually, like, his entire tribe was going to perish. But anyway, with the help of the Catholic Church, though, Squanto was able to escape and find his way to England, where he would learn English, and he would eventually return to North America in 1619. So basically, a year before the Puritans landed. Basically,
Okay.
so he was able to learn English because he was in England. So that's how he learned English. And
Wait, you said he was where? Like when he got sold, where did he go? When he got when the slave trader came, where did he go before he went to New England?
I feel
Because
I feel like he was they were already there, but basically like
wasn't it somewhere mentioned that he was sold to slavery in Spain at the time before he went to England to learn English?
well he did go well he was in Spain. He did go to Spain for a while, and I would say if it was there, then maybe that's where the Catholic Church helped him be free at that point, and then he eventually went to England to learn English, and basically during that time his people were dying off because they weren't immune to disease. That's like the disease that was brought to the indigenous people by the Europeans was the main killer of Squanto's people, because eventually when he came back,
I would say so because they're used to everything here in the New World. They're not used to all this international people coming over and not knowing if they were healthy at the time because they were never going to be like, oh, let me see. Let me check your scratches and bruises. Let me see if you have anything that we have to worry about.
yeah, so basically yeah, when Squanto returned to his village, he realized that he was basically the sole survivor of the village. And basically, the illness spread quickly that many local tribes never even had time to bury their dead. Basically, and it was actually during that time where the Wampanoag leader, Massasoit, right, took him in to be as one. But sometimes it wasn't even too pretty, especially if a tribe accepts someone from a different tribe, and basically because Massasoit knew that Tisquantum was good in English. He was fluent in English, so he basically
So
just
it's
used,
basically a traitor. Like, why would you want to learn their language? Maybe.
well, not a traitor, but it's like a beneficial to his advantage.
Well, yeah, because he thinks
It
like
could be used to his
he can be
advantage.
easily influenced to influence the rest of them. Like, oh, they're not bad people, not knowing like what they just did before he showed up.
Basically, yeah. Or if they are friend or foe, doesn't matter, right? So he didn't really trust. It says, like, from what I read, it said that Massasoit didn't really trust him too much, and that
I
he
mean, yeah,
basically
because he
held him
was.
as a prisoner,
Oh,
technically.
I don't know. I guess like my opinion, if I don't know how their behavior was at the time, but from what it seems, from my understanding, it'd be like okay, he was captured, obviously not by choice. Like he didn't want to like go all the way out to Spain, so he was out for a period of time. Then by the time he came back, noting that he was probably the only one of his tribe there, and seeing this other tribe here, I was like, okay, what happened to my people? Like I have nowhere to go. Like can I stay with you guys? Not knowing like oh hey like you lost out on a lot of things. Even if it took you this period of time, like we don't trust that what you're doing is for our benefit because you were gone for so long.
Yeah, basically. Um, so now we go into like what really happened into the Thanksgiving, right? So basically, the Pilgrims celebrated the successful harvest in 1621, right? So they ended up beginning shooting their guns into the air like a bunch of like
Like Americans.
okay, we can go down like a bunch of Americans. Yeah, not saying it's bad, but
Yeah, that's not good or bad. It's just like as just an American is now like
they were happy.
their guns in the air.
Because they were happy. They had a
Yeah.
successful harvest, okay? And it basically caused Massasoit to bring warriors with him to prepare for battle, because obviously who wouldn't think like, oh, shoot,
The shooting happened. Oh,
like,
there
what the
must be
heck's a
some
shooting
danger
happen?
happening.
Like something's happening. Maybe an enemy tribe is attacking them, all right? Let's go. And then here comes like Batman and Robin, like
Batman and Robin. Yikes.
and then they head over there, right? But instead of the fighting, the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims ended up working together to prepare a feast.
Yeah.
that ended up what happening. And then, a lot of statues were being made in honor of the place where the Thanksgiving happened, etc. Right? You can still visit People can still visit Plymouth today, look around, right, and see how the old settlement was like. And yeah, so I guess really like to end this conversation is really a bit sensitive, but I know it has to be kind of talked about, and it's good to basically just talk this out and to know what one thinks about this. And basically, it's that a time of grief. Is Thanksgiving a time of grief for Native Americans?
I mean, I understand, like, okay, like, obviously a lot of positive things were happening, you know, them intermingling with, people of New England at the time, knowing and, like, getting to know each other's culture. But there comes a point in time where, people that travel, they want to divide and conquer, thinking like, oh, this is free land, not knowing, oh, okay, the indigenous people were here first. You're taking their land. You're taking over their cultural beliefs. You're actually, you're making sure their cultural background and, like, their belief system is never acknowledged, because you believe, like, your the things that you learned back in New England
England.
is worth more than
England. There is
yeah
no back in England.
back in England. You think that your belief system is more important and should be, cemented into American history, as compared to, the people who were here first. Like, obviously, the indigenous people don't take that lightly when they're thought of as inferior, or not even worth their time. Even after
Yeah.
they kind of taught us, how to live off the land, because they've been doing this for so long, even before we came into the picture.
Basically, yeah. So in a way, it's a time of mourning for I would say, the Eastern tribes, the ones that lived in the East Coast. So of course, the Wampanoag tribe, obviously, a lot of them did die off from the diseases, and of course,
And then
skirmishes that happened between them and the settlers. For example, let's look at the Cherokee with what Andrew Jackson did. Oh my gosh, worst president. But anyways, whatever Andrew Jackson did with the Cherokee, forcing them to go on the Trail of Tears, so bad. That's a day of mourning too. And basically, well,
was that around that period of time though, like like during that fall season, or was that like earlier in the year when the Trail of Tears happened?
I feel like it happened during like the fall, like towards the end of the year. And but Abraham Lincoln was no saint either. Sorry, but Abraham Lincoln was no saint either. Basically,
A hot take.
Basically, a
Let it be noted.
basically, a massacre happened. So an incident happened with the Dakota. So basically, this is what happened. The only reason why President Lincoln officially established the holiday, because it was a way to basically improve relations between northern and southern states, but also between the U.S. and the tribal nations. Because a year prior, a mass execution took place of Dakota tribal members, right? Because corrupt federal agents kept the Dakota Sioux from receiving food and provisions, and basically finally at the brink of death from starvation, because who wouldn't, right? Basically, members of the tribe would fight back, because again, who wouldn't? Because
You're being deprived of food by government officials.
And it resulted in the Dakota War of 1862. So along with the Civil War, there was something known as the Dakota War of 1862. And in the end, good old Honest Abe ordered 38 Dakota men to die from hanging. And he felt that
The government officials, or
the Dakota men, the members from the tribe.
Oh, the members of the tribe.
Yeah, 38 members of the Dakota tribe.
Because they fought back.
He ordered that they would be hanged because of their actions and fighting.
Because they fought back, because they're being deprived of food and resources.
Basically. And because of that,
All right.
President Lincoln felt that Thanksgiving offered an opportunity to bridge the hard feelings amongst natives and the federal government. Uh, isn't that sweet? He decided, I'm gonna hang 38 Dakota men, but
Instead of our own people who, were the prime reason they were fighting back, they decided to lynch the people that are obviously starving.
it's like, oh, but it's what, it's okay. There's gonna be no hard feelings. We're gonna enjoy ourselves. And basically, Dr. Mosteller, one of the key historians about studying American history, he basically stated it was propaganda. It was to try and build this event so that you could have a deeper narrative about community building and coming together in shared brotherhood and unity.
Well.
Wow. Yeah, in a way, I think it was. In a way, it basically was propaganda. You know.
I mean, now that that's mentioned, I feel like who wouldn't want to make themselves feel better by saying, "Oh, this is just for the betterment of everyone," even though we just, did that. Even though we just lynched 38 people.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's like Thanksgiving had always been a thing in every culture of society. It's not just because we celebrate this Thanksgiving, we celebrate this one event, specific event. It's like, no, that's not the case. Everybody in every culture has their own Thanksgiving traditions. Like a lot of the native tribes here, they have their Thanksgiving. Like where at times they celebrate Thanksgiving, they have Thanksgivings like 3 times a year where they give thanks for their bounty that were given to them, and what they have. And really it's like it's come down to this specific event of why we're celebrating Thanksgiving every fourth Thursday every year. So basically it's like, no, it's based off of this specific event. The Pilgrims, the Puritans that came over here, that starved, that struggled to make it through. It's like, well, first of all,
We forget about what happened in Florida when the Spaniards came over.
mm-hmm.
So and they were trying to make peace with everything, but also, at the price of killing people at the same time.
Yeah. But also, here's the thing: they were supposed to go to Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
These Puritans were supposed to go to Virginia, right? But apparently, what I have read online was basically, and this is literally from the Potawatomi tribes webpage, right? They explain the history, right? Basically, here's the thing. It seemed like the Puritans wanted to purposefully go up to Massachusetts and not go to Virginia.
Why? Why would they want to go on purpose?
Well, because first of all, again, the Puritans were known as separatists. They wanted to be separated from the Church of England. Virginia was nothing but members of the Church of England. So the religion that the colonists in Virginia had was the Church of England, the Anglican Church. So maybe they most likely didn't want to live alongside the Anglicans because they wanted to practice.
So Virginia's nothing but Virginia at the time was nothing but the Church of England,
Mm-hmm.
but Plymouth has nothing to do with it because it's, I guess, uncharted territory.
But it may be uncharted territory, but it also said that the Dutch possibly had bribed the Mayflower's captain into going more up north because the Dutch, they were in New York, but it was known as New Amsterdam because that was the Dutch's colony. So it appeared that the Dutch had possibly bribed the Mayflower's captain to sail north, and basically their arrival at Cape Cod was purposeful, right? And a historian by the name of George Willison has argued that the Pilgrim leaders, wanting to be far from Anglican control, never planned to settle Virginia, but they have debated the relative merit of Guyana in South America versus the Massachusetts coast, and according to Willison, they intended a hijacking. Oh, good.
They hijacked a ship?
Good. Puritans intending to hijack a ship.
Oh, they tried to attempt to hijack a ship?
Well, no, they didn't try to. They wanted to, but they didn't end up wanting to go through it. And then certainly the Pilgrims already knew quite a bit about what Massachusetts could offer them, from the fine fishing along Cape Cod to that wonderful plague, which offered an unusual opportunity for English settlement. So it seemed like they already knew the area. That's what
They knew the area, but
that's
just because the Dutch told them that. The Dutch of New Amsterdam told them, "Oh well, this is a decent area where you could fish and possibly live off the land if you're able to kind of make it possible." So let's steer clear of Virginia, where you're gonna have painful memories of the Church of England, and go this way.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Interesting.
yeah, very interesting stuff. So something you guys can talk about in the Thanksgiving table, or not. I mean, better than politics.
Yeah, I mean,
Like better than politics. To be honest.
up to you guys how you want to discuss this at the dinner table.
So yeah, well, guys, this has been a nice episode of a second episode of our podcast, A Drink with the Past. So while you are enjoying your delicious turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole,
Or whatever it is that you guys end up eating.
or
'cause I-
tamales, or pozole,
Yeah, 'cause
etc. Right?
We've never
Para mi
had a
gente.
turkey feast in this house. Never.
Para mi gente, like if you have tamales, pozole, rice, beans, go for it. Kudos, right? It doesn't matter because America is a country that is diverse, right? We have a lot of diversity. So whatever nationality background your family comes from, you basically not only have American food, which is basically the usual turkey and mashed potatoes or ham, but you can have other things such as bulgogi if you're Korean. Bulgogi, you have brisket, you have kimchi jjigae.
Kimchi jjigae.
Jjigae is Korean for stew, by the way. Or in Chinese, you have chow mein. You have, probably you have your rice, your plain white rice, basically. And so, yeah, so while you guys are enjoying your dinner, right, make sure you guys are just thankful for being with your family, your friends, right? Just try to make Thanksgiving a memorable day, as long as the other holidays that's coming up.
Thank you guys for watching, and make sure you like and comment whatever your thoughts about this episode and what your thoughts of Thanksgiving are as a whole. And subscribe to the YouTube page if you want to.
So
let us know what that is.
So the YouTube page is basically gonna be History Martin. Subscribe to that page and listen to our Spotify too. Like give credit on our Spotify, or if you wanna follow my TikTok, again, it is history_Martin for my TikTok. And
our next episode that we are going to be talking about is mostly about Pearl Harbor. So if you are excited for that, please tune into it next time.
It will be a good one. It'll be a lot of questions too, a lot of controversy about what really happened on the attack on Pearl Harbor, how it was instigated, how it was planned, etc. And there may be a special guest for that one that will be joining us to give more insights of their opinions about the attack on Pearl Harbor. So that is something to look forward to. As always, guys, this has been your host, Martin.
And Jose.
And
thank you for joining us as we take a drink
with the past.